What we have is an educational system that was really designed 120 years ago. And if you think about how much the world has changed, how much our economy has changed, how much society has changed in 120 years, it's not difficult to suspect, at least, that we ought to be making some changes. We group kids by age, move them through the system in batches. Yet everybody knows that students learn in different ways at different rates. Our system was designed to teach largely content, names, dates, places, sequences. And at one time that was really important because that information wasn't easily accessible if you didn't know it. Today, you can pull that information out of your pocket in 5 seconds. What we need to know now is context and utility and connectedness and relationships and skills. How do I use that information to understand what's going on? It's about building learner capacity as opposed to simply piling up facts. What's different about personalized learning is that it actively engages the learner in the work as opposed to planning and doing it to the learner. The goals of personalized learning at its core is to build learner capacity. So it's worth investing in their capacity as opposed to simply accumulating names, dates, facts that are pretty temporal. In fact, may not be important 20 years from now. But if students learn how to learn, no matter how the world changes, they're in a position to be successful. We begin to look at learning through the eyes of the learner as opposed to exclusively through the eyes of the curriculum or the lesson plan. The goal really is to have learners see themselves as their own best teacher. So they move from, if you will, the sort of traditional historic relationship of the learner was a vessel to be filled with knowledge from the teacher's head, to co-designers, to co-workers, co-investors in the student's learning. It is about engaging kids in different ways. Students tend to feel greater level of ownership for their learning. So they're not doing it necessarily to please adults or to avoid negative consequences. They're doing it because this is something of value to them that's worthwhile. The range of assessment-related activities tends to broaden. So there would still be, you'd still find some tests like you might see today, but you'd also likely see students doing demonstrations, students building and presenting models, students defending a position. In some cases, students teaching another student, because what we know about that act is that if we learn a concept well enough to be able to teach it to someone else, one, we can assess pretty accurately what we've really learned, and secondly, just the act of teaching reinforces what's been learned. The best we can do is equip learners with the skills, the competencies, the strategies, and the habits necessary to be continual lifelong learners in a really dynamic way that's not dependent on someone lecturing to them or telling them that they need to develop this internal skill set. Most of us as adults have gone through the system as it was designed decades ago. The education of our children is a very important high-stakes activity. And so there's a tendency often for us to say, look, it worked for me, so let's just stay with that for my child. The problem is that even if it did work for me, that's my future, not my child's future. And the really solid kinds of strategies that we've used before continue. It's just in a different context, different way. Well, wouldn't it be better if we designed schools to prepare our kids to be able to be successful in a workplace that's rapidly changing, rather than leaving it to the individual to try and figure that out?